Separating church and state should be done. Separating religion and politics should never be done. And there is no reason to separate religion and politics because everybody who's involved in politics is bringing their beliefs into their political activities. Actually, there was one thing that was important to me in terms of the issue of church and state, like the separation of church and state.
Okay.
Like people talk a lot about the separation of church and state. They want to use that as an argument why Christians should not be involved in politics. But there's a very important distinction here that most people miss. There's the separation of church and state, and then there's the issue of religion and politics. And people use these terminologies interchangeably, church and state and religion and politics. They use them interchangeably, but they're not interchangeable. Church and state are separate institutions. The church is an institution, and the state is an institution, and they should not be mixed. They should be separate. They're established in the Bible as being separate institutions. The church is a particular body of people with a particular leadership, and the state is a particular body of people with a particular leadership. But sometimes they overlap, right? Because the church people are in the state. So those are institutions that are separate institutions and should be separate institutions. Sometimes in the past, historically, one of those institutions would take control over the other. For example, sometimes the government would rule over the church. For example, even in the current system in Britain, although it's not enforced as much now, but the king or the monarch would be the head of the church. That's a situation where there is no separation of church and state because the political leader is also the head of the church. And that's where you have a violation of the separation of church and state, which is a problem. So you have to make this distinction between this church and state being institutions, that issue, and then the religion and politics, which is completely different because religion and politics can never be separated. Religion is basically a set of beliefs, to make a rough definition, whereas politics are activities related to government and things like that. So separating religion and politics can never be done. Separating church and state should be done. Separating religion and politics should never be done. And there is no reason to separate religion and politics because everybody who's involved in politics is bringing their beliefs into their political activities, like they're furthering their political beliefs. That's where they get involved because they want a particular set of beliefs to be embraced by the government or policies to reflect their beliefs. Christians do that. When Christians get involved in politics, they want government policies to reflect Christian beliefs. And when non-Christians get involved, whether they consider themselves to have a religion or not, they are reflecting a particular set of beliefs. And even though people like secularists think they don't have a religion, basically their beliefs are equivalent to a religion in terms of what Christians bring a particular set of beliefs to politics. Non-Christians, even secularists, bring a particular set of beliefs to politics. So non-Christians and secularists are doing the exact same thing as Christians when they get involved in politics. So there is never a separation of politics and religion, and that's a completely separate matter from separating church and state.